The moment you stop being the nice girl is the moment everything changes. And I'm not talking about becoming rude or cold. I'm talking about finally stepping into your power, dropping the act, saying what you mean, setting boundaries that actually mean something. Because being the nice girl isn't about being kind, it's about being small, agreeable, silent when you should speak up, and apologetic for simply existing. You were not put on this earth to make everyone comfortable. You were not born to play it safe, to shrink, to be liked at the expense of your soul. This, right here, is your wake-up call. If you're tired of being overlooked, underestimated, or walked all over, then it's time to stop playing nice and start showing up real. Ready? Let's go. The idea of being nice is something many of us have been taught from a young age. We're raised to say please and thank you, to smile even when we're uncomfortable, to avoid conflict, and to put others' needs before our own. For girls especially, the niceness asset is often presented not as a virtue, but as a requirement. Be agreeable, be polite, don't make waves, don't be too loud, too direct, too assertive, too much. And at first glance, it sounds like good advice, right? After all, being nice isn't a bad thing. Kindness, empathy, and respect are powerful traits. But here's the truth no one talks about. Being nice and being real are not the same thing. And when niceness becomes a performance, a survival mechanism, or a way to earn validation, it stops serving you and starts shrinking you. The myth of nice is that it will somehow protect you. That if you're nice enough, people will treat you well. If you don't rock the boat, no one will throw you overboard. That if you make yourself small, soft, and easy to deal with, the world will reward you for it. But what actually happens is the opposite. When you make nice your identity, you teach people that your time, your energy, your voice, and your boundaries are negotiable. You train them, without realizing it, that you will bend, break, and stay silent just to avoid disappointing them. And people, even the well-meaning ones, will treat you based on what you allow. That's not their fault. It's yours. Because being nice doesn't earn you respect. It earns you expectations. Expectations that you'll always say yes, that you'll tolerate mistreatment, that you'll never challenge, question, or walk away. So what's the cost of constantly being the nice girl? It's your self-respect, your mental health, your sense of agency. It's saying yes when you mean no. It's being exhausted because you're emotionally overcommitted and spiritually undernourished. It's being liked by everyone but known by no one. Because here's the part no one tells you. When you're always nice, you end up hiding the parts of you that are powerful, honest, and real. You trade your truth for approval. You dim your light so others don't feel insecure. And worst of all, you lose trust in yourself because you're constantly betraying your own needs to meet someone else's. People often confuse niceness with goodness, but they're not the same. Being a good person means acting with integrity. It means being honest, fair, and respectful, not a doormat, not a peacekeeper at your own expense. You can be kind without being a pushover. You can be compassionate and still say, odd enough. The most powerful people, women especially, aren't the ones who are universally liked. They're the ones who are grounded in who they are. They're clear on their boundaries. They don't seek permission to speak their minds. And guess what? They're still respected, often more so. The world doesn't need more nice girls. It needs more real women. Women who stop performing and start showing up. Women who tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Women who say no without apology. Women who make decisions not based on how they'll be perceived, but based on what aligns with their values. That shift from nice to real is where your power lives. That's when things start to change. That's when people begin to take you seriously because you're finally taking yourself seriously. So if you've been stuck in the trap of being the nice girl, this is your permission to break free. Not tomorrow, not when it's more convenient. Now. Start noticing the moments when you bite your tongue out of fear, when you say yes out of guilt, when you smile to hide the fire in your gut. Those are your signals. That's where the work begins. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to unlearn the myth that being a nice is the highest thing you can be. People-pleasing sounds harmless on the surface. It sounds like being considerate, kind, or thoughtful. But in reality, people-pleasing is a form of self-betrayal. It's when you make decisions not based on what you want, need, or believe, but on how others will react. It's when your worth is tied to someone else's approval. You start filtering your words, your choices, even your personality, just to fit into someone else's expectations. And while it might feel like you're keeping the peace or making others happy, what you're really doing is abandoning yourself over and over again. At its core, people-pleasing is fear dressed up as generosity. It's the fear of rejection, conflict, or judgment. It's the fear that if you say no, set a boundary, or show up as your full self, people will leave or disapprove. So instead, you mold yourself to keep them comfortable. You say yes when your body is screaming no. You tolerate situations that drain you. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You make yourself responsible for other people's emotions, reactions, and even their happiness. But here's the truth. Every time you do that, a small piece of you disappears. You chip away at your identity, your voice, your authenticity, all to keep others from feeling discomfort, and all while increasing your own. The irony is, most people pleasers think they're being helpful or kind. But what they're really doing is being dishonest. When you say yes, but you don't mean it, that's not kindness, it's manipulation. You're not giving freely, you're giving with the unspoken hope that someone will like you, praise you, or need you. And when they don't return the favor, you feel resentful, angry, exhausted. That's because the giving wasn't pure, it came from a place of lack, not wholeness. Real generosity comes from overflow, not obligation. When you betray yourself to please others, you're not being loving, you're just disappearing. One of the most dangerous parts of people-pleasing is how sneaky it is. It can disguise itself as being a good friend, a supportive partner, a hardworking employee. It can look like selflessness, when really, it's a deep need for external validation. You're constantly chasing approval, trying to earn your place in the world by being useful, agreeable, low maintenance. And slowly you start to believe that your value is tied to what you do for others, not who you are. That's a painful place to live from, because no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. The bar keeps moving, and deep down you start to wonder, when is it my turn? When do I get to matter too? The moment you start choosing yourself over pleasing others is the moment your life begins to shift. You start to realize that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. That some people will be disappointed, and that's not your responsibility. That your needs, your limits, your voice, those things deserve space too. You stop waiting for permission to exist and start standing in your truth, even if it ruffles feathers. You learn that real connection can only happen when you show up as your full, unfiltered self. Because when you people please, the love you receive isn't even for you, it's for the version of you that you think others want. And here's the wild part. When you stop people pleasing, you don't become selfish, you become free. Free to say no without guilt, free to rest without explanation, free to speak your truth without second-guessing every word. Or you begin to trust yourself. You become someone you actually respect. And that quiet resentment you've been carrying, it starts to fade, because you're no longer betraying yourself for scraps of approval. You will lose people when you stop people-pleasing. That's a fact. The ones who only love the version of you that served them, flattered them, or enabled them, they may not stick around. But the people who love the real you, they'll stay. And you'll be able to tell the difference between fake peace and real alignment, between being liked and being seen, between shrinking for others and finally expanding into yourself. Our boundaries are not walls, ultimatums, or acts of aggression. They're clarity, they're self-respect in action. They are the invisible lines that define where you end and someone else begins. And here's what most people get wrong. Boundaries aren't about controlling others, they're about protecting your peace, your energy, your time, and your emotional well-being. Without them, you leave the door wide open for chaos, resentment, and burnout. With them, you create space where real respect, healthy relationships, and inner stability can exist. A lot of people avoid setting boundaries because they're afraid of being seen as rude, difficult, or selfish. We're conditioned, especially as women, to be accommodating, to put others first, and to equate saying no with being unkind. So we keep saying yes, even when it drains us. We overextend, overcommit, and over-apologize. We allow disrespect not because we don't see it, but because we don't want to deal with the discomfort of standing up for ourselves. But here's the truth. When you don't set boundaries, you end up betraying yourself. And that betrayal, done over and over again, leads to a quiet kind of suffering that builds until you no longer recognize who you are or what you want. Boundaries are not optional. They're necessary for survival. You need them to function. You need them to thrive. You need them to keep your energy focused on what matters instead of being drained by what doesn't. Think about your phone. You wouldn't leave it constantly open to every app, every call, every notification because it would die before noon. Yet, without boundaries, that's exactly how most people live. Always accessible, always accommodating, always saying yes even when they're screaming no on the inside. That kind of life leads to depletion, not because you're weak, but because you've never been taught how to protect your power. The fear around boundaries often comes from the idea that other people will get upset. Guess what? Or some will, especially the ones who benefit from you having none. But the discomfort of someone else's reaction is not your responsibility. Your job is not to keep others comfortable at your own expense. Your job is to be honest about what you can give and where you draw the line. People who respect you will honor those lines. People who don't, they'll try to guilt trip you, manipulate you, or make you feel like you're doing something wrong by standing up for yourself. That's when your boundaries become even more essential, not less. Here's the thing. Boundaries aren't just for toxic situations or dramatic confrontations. They're for everyday life. They're saying, I don't respond to work messages after 7 p.m. or I need time to myself on Sundays. Or please don't speak to me like that. Simple, direct, calm. They don't need to come with long explanations or emotional breakdowns. You don't need to justify why you need space, silence, or separation. Needing something isn't a crime. It's human. And the moment you start treating your needs as valid, the easier it becomes to enforce the boundaries that protect them. Boundaries also help you see who's really meant to be in your life, because the people who truly care about you will respect your limits. They won't guilt you for needing rest. They won't push you to explain every decision. They won't punish you for saying no. Instead, they'll meet you with understanding. And if someone leaves your life because you set a boundary, let them go. That's not rejection, that's clarity. It means that relationship was built on your silence, not your truth. What you allow is what will continue. If you're constantly giving more than you receive, if you're constantly tolerating disrespect, if you're always exhausted and emotionally drained, that's not bad luck, it's a boundary issue. And it won't change until you change it. Boundaries are how you retrain the world to treat you differently. But more importantly, they're how you begin to treat yourself differently. Not as someone who's always available, always agreeable, always last on the list, but as someone who matters, someone who has limits, someone who deserves peace. So stop waiting for permission to draw the line. You don't need a meltdown or a crisis to make a change. You can choose today to stop over-explaining, to stop apologizing for having needs, to stop sacrificing your well-being to keep the peace. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're a radical act of self-love. And the moment you begin to honor them, you'll realize the freedom, clarity, and confidence you've been chasing, it was never outside of you. It was waiting behind the line you were too afraid to draw. You teach people how to treat you, not by what you say, but by what you allow. Every interaction, every boundary you set or fail to set, every time you tolerate disrespect or let something slide, you're sending a message. You're training others on how to engage with you. And this isn't about blame, it's about ownership. Because the truth is, the way people treat you often mirrors the standards you hold for yourself. If you constantly put yourself last, if you accept behavior that hurts you just to avoid conflict, if you stay silent when your voice is shaking with truth, then you are unintentionally giving others permission to keep doing it. Many of us don't even realize we're doing it. We let small things go because it's not worth it, or we tell ourselves that's just how they are. But over time, those small compromises stack up into a life where you feel unseen, unheard, and unimportant. You wake up one day wondering why people don't respect your time, why they cross your boundaries, why they always expect you to be the one who bends. It's not because they're villains, it's because they've learned, consciously or not, that you won't stop them. That you'd rather carry the weight than risk the fallout, that your kindness means access and your silence means consent. The power in understanding that you teach people how to treat you is that it gives you the chance to rewrite the script. You can reset the tone of your relationships by showing up differently. And no, it's not about being harsh or confrontational. It's about being consistent. It's It's about making your standards non-negotiable. If someone cancels plans last minute every time, and you keep rearranging your schedule to make it work again and again, they'll keep doing it because you've shown them they can. But if you say, I value my time, last minute cancellations don't work for me, and then stick to it, they're forced to either rise to your level or fall away. Either way, you've just reclaimed your power. This also applies in work, friendships, family, everywhere. You show people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you don't respect your own time, energy, or boundaries, no one else will. You can't expect people to honor what you continuously ignore. The way you speak about yourself, the way you carry yourself, the way you enforce your limits, those are signals. And the clearer you get about what's okay and what's not, the clearer others will get too. But let's be real, it's not always easy. Changing how people treat you means changing how you show up, and that takes courage. It means saying things that might make others uncomfortable. It means walking away from dynamics that once felt safe but were built on self-sacrifice. It means standing firm even when people push back, even when they try to guilt trip you, even when they act like you've changed, because you have. And that's not something to apologize for. That's something to celebrate. One of the hardest but most liberating lessons is realizing that not everyone will treat you the way you deserve, but you get to decide who stays close and who doesn't. You don't have to keep people in your life who continuously hurt you just because they've been around a long time. Longevity doesn't equal loyalty. Proximity doesn't equal respect. And history doesn't excuse mistreatment. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to say, I've outgrown this dynamic. You're allowed to require more, even if that means some people don't follow you into the next chapter. When you start teaching people to treat you with respect, not everyone will clap for you. Some will leave. Some will get defensive. Some will try to pull you back into the version of yourself who accepted crumbs. Don't go back. You didn't do all this inner work to stay stuck in outer patterns that no longer serve you. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep reinforcing your standards, even when it feels hard. That's how you shift the relationships around you, from obligation to alignment, from resentment to respect. The more you honor your truth, the more others will learn to honor it too. And the ones who don't, let them learn from a distance, because the way people treat you is never just about them. It's a reflection of what you've taught them to expect. So teach wisely, teach with strength, teach with love for yourself, and never forget you are not asking for too much. You're just finally asking for what you always deserved. Speaking up is a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it. At first, it might feel shaky, unfamiliar, even scary. Your voice might tremble, your heart might pound. You might overthink every word, wondering if you sounded too aggressive, too emotional, too direct. But that's how growth begins, awkward, uncomfortable, and real. The truth is, most people aren't born confident communicators. They become confident because they start choosing their voice over their silence again and again, even when it's hard. We're often taught to stay quiet, especially in environments where speaking up is seen as disruptive or confrontational. For many, silence became a survival skill. You kept your opinions to yourself to keep the peace. You stayed quiet in the face of disrespect because it felt safer. You swallowed your feelings because you didn't want to come off as dramatic or needy. And while that may have helped you fit in or avoid conflict, it also chipped away at your confidence. The more you silence yourself, the more disconnected you become from your truth. You start to second-guess your instincts. You replay conversations in your head, thinking of all the things you could have said but didn't. And eventually you begin to believe that your voice doesn't matter, or worse, that you don't have one. But here's the thing, your voice is powerful. Not because it's perfect or always eloquent, but because it's yours. It carries your truth, your perspective, your boundaries, and the only way to find that power is to start using it. You don't need to wait until you're ready or confident. You get ready by doing it scared. You get confident by showing up anyway. Start with the small things. Say no when you mean no. Correct someone when they cross a line. Share your opinion even if it shakes. The more you practice, the less terrifying it becomes. And one day you'll realize that what used to paralyze you now feels like second nature. Speaking up isn't just about defending yourself or making a point. It's about self-trust. Every time you choose to voice your needs, your boundaries, your truth, you're telling yourself, I've got your back. That internal trust builds a foundation that no one can shake. It makes you less dependent on external validation because you no longer need someone else to confirm what you already know. And that kind of self-assurance, it changes how you walk into a room, how you navigate relationships, how you handle conflict. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop over-explaining to justify your boundaries. You start standing in your truth with clarity and calm. Of course, not everyone will be comfortable with you speaking up, especially if they've benefited from your silence. Some people will push back. They'll call you difficult, emotional, too much. Let them. That reaction says more about them than it does about you. Your job isn't to be palatable, it's to be authentic. The right people will appreciate your honesty. The wrong ones will reveal themselves. Either way, you win. Because speaking up doesn't just filter your relationships, it strengthens them. It brings depth, clarity, and honesty. And most importantly, it brings you back to yourself. There will be moments when you fumble, when you say the wrong thing, when your voice cracks or your message lands awkwardly. That's okay. You're not aiming for perfect, you're aiming for real. Keep going, keep practicing. Every time you speak your truth, you reclaim a little more of your power. You build that muscle, and it starts to carry you through situations that used to intimidate you. You stop rehearsing your words 100 times before saying them. You stop shrinking in rooms that once made you feel invisible. You realize that your voice isn't a weapon, it's a compass. And the more you follow it, the more aligned your life becomes. So speak up. Even when it's messy, even when it's met with resistance, even when your hands are shaking. Because every time you do, you remind the world and yourself that you are not here to be silent. You are here to be heard. And your voice? It's more than enough. Letting go of guilt is one of the most liberating and necessary things you'll ever do for yourself. And yet, for so many people, especially those who've spent their lives being the nice 1%, guilt shows up every time they choose themselves. It's the quiet voice that whispers, "You're being selfish." It's the pit in your stomach when you say no. It's the heaviness you feel after setting a boundary, asking for space, or walking away from a situation that no longer serves you. That guilt isn't truth. It's programming. It's the byproduct of a lifetime of being conditioned to prioritize other people's comfort over your own peace. And the only way to grow into your full self is to recognize that guilt for what it really is, a false alarm. Guilt often arises when you start to change, when you stop being the dependable one who's always available, always accommodating, always sacrificing. When you begin to put your needs at the forefront, even if that means disappointing others. And it's in those moments when you finally choose what feels right for you, that guilt starts to panic, because it's been trained to associate self-prioritization with wrongdoing. You've been taught that love means sacrifice, that kindness means saying yes, no matter what, that being a good daughter, partner, friend, employee means always putting yourself second. So when you do the opposite, it feels like you're breaking some unspoken rule. But here's the truth. Those rules were never made for your liberation. Were made to keep you small. Guilt tricks you into thinking that honoring yourself is harmful to others. But the reality is, when you consistently abandon yourself to avoid guilt, you end up living a life that's out of alignment. You say yes, and then resent it. You agree, and then feel drained. You show up, and then feel invisible. That's not love, that's performance. And when you live like that long enough, the guilt stops being situational and starts becoming chronic. You feel guilty not just when you do something wrong, but simply for existing as a human being with needs, boundaries, and desires. That's a weight no one is meant to carry. The shift happens when you realize that guilt and wrongdoing are not the same thing. You can feel guilty and still be doing what's best. You can feel guilty and still be in alignment. You can feel guilty and still say no, because guilt isn't always a sign you've hurt someone. Sometimes it's just a sign you're healing. It means you're breaking patterns, rewriting stories, reclaiming your life. Of course, it feels uncomfortable. Growth always does. But discomfort isn't danger, it's just unfamiliar. And over time, the more you choose yourself, the quieter the guilt becomes. It loses its grip. It stops being the voice of authority and starts being what it truly is, a residue of old conditioning. Letting go of guilt means learning to sit with discomfort without abandoning yourself. It means trusting that your worth isn't measured by how much you tolerate. It means accepting that disappointing others is inevitable and not a reflection of your value. You are not responsible for how others react to your truth. Your job is not to manage their emotions, expectations, or narratives about you. Your job is to be honest, clear, and rooted in what's real for you. That kind of clarity creates real connection, not people-pleasing illusions. You don't have to explain yourself into exhaustion. You don't have to justify your every boundary. You don't have to make yourself smaller so someone else feels more comfortable. The people who truly care about you will understand. And the ones who don't, they were only ever loyal to your compliance, not your wholeness. Letting go of guilt gives you the freedom to live authentically. It opens the door to relationships built on truth, not performance. It allows you to rest, to choose, to say no, to say yes for you. And yes, there will be moments when guilt creeps in again, that's normal, but now you'll know what to do. You'll pause, breathe, and remind yourself, feeling guilty doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. It means I'm doing something different, and that's okay. You'll stop letting guilt be the reason you stay stuck. You'll stop letting it hijack your choices. You'll let it pass through you, like a wave that no longer has the power to drown you. Because the real you, the strong, clear, powerful you, has finally decided to stop apologizing for taking up space. And that choice? That's what freedom feels like. Here's the truth. The moment you stop being the nice girl is the moment everything changes. Not because you become cold or cruel, but because you finally become real. You stop living for approval. You stop shrinking to fit into roles that never honored your power. You start drawing lines, speaking up, protecting your energy, and choosing yourself without guilt. And that shift, it ripples into every area of your life. Your relationships get clearer, your confidence grows, your peace becomes non-negotiable. You no longer chase validation, you walk in your worth. Being nice isn't the problem, but being nice at the expense of your voice, your boundaries, your truth, that's where the damage lives. That's what keeps you stuck. So today, make the decision. Stop being the nice girl who abandons herself just to be liked. Start being the woman who respects herself so fiercely that others have no choice but to rise to her level or step aside. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to who you've always been, underneath the layers of people-pleasing, silence, and self-doubt. That version of you, she's powerful, she's clear, she's done playing small, and the world better get ready because she's just getting started.